I'd first like to thank you both for inviting me to be here tonight. This is a topic that's very dear and near to my heart. As the girls have expressed to you already, I'm a person living with dementia, and I received a firm diagnosis at the age of 53. I'm now 58 years young. I was still very high functioning and independent at the time of my diagnosis. The thought of losing my license was devastating. I was going to keep my license no matter the cost financially. I would take the test through the Ministry of Transportation and pay out of pocket if I had to, because I wasn't going to lose that freedom. And yes, I still have my license to this day, and I still have a fear of losing it. I think that comes from, it's my last straw of independence, and I want to keep it. I just happened to be one of the lucky ones whose doctor was very supportive and did not take my license because she did realize I was still high functioning. With my background as a nurse, I'm very safety conscious. So I made a plan to go out driving once a month with some of my family members so they can keep an eye on my driving. This also opens the doors to a discussion if they felt I was still capable to do this. I also agreed that if they said I wasn't capable, I would hand over my keys. To me, this was a good solution for the problem at the time. Once I was started on medication and the fog I was in lifted, I became more aware, and I realized how unaware or the lack of insight I had about my own state earlier on. I became more aware of the consequences of my actions. I started to think of the ramifications of driving with dementia. The one thing we also have to take into consideration is that most people, sorry, I lost my spot. With dementia have other health problems that can also play a factor in this. Some of the questions I started to ask myself and some of the actions I implemented are, I would not take any of my grandchildren in the car. If I had to go out with them, then it meant one of my family members would have to drive us. This has ended up working very well. I leave it up to the adults to make the decisions of riding with me or finding a different mode of transportation. Would my insurance company cover me if I had an accident? Would they even cover me if I called to tell them I have a diagnosis of dementia? What would happen if I left the house and I was having a good day, but then I became confused later on in the day? What if I got lost? What if I had an accident and I hurt somebody? Could I live with myself? When will I know it's time to give up my keys? If I still have enough awareness of my condition, will I know when it's time to stop driving? We are all well aware that living with dementia is like a roller coaster. You have good days, you have bad days. You have foggy days, and you have clear days. We also know that that cycle of the roller coaster can speed up or slow down. So it can happen in hours or days. I become very aware of this, and again, I became very good at realizing if I was able to drive. Then one day I had an epiphany. I think I shouldn't be driving. There are many ramifications that I had not even thought about. There's a condition called anosognosia. That's the denial or unawareness of an impairment or a disability. There's the mental alertness, the reaction time, the vision impairment that comes and goes with dementia. There's the inattentiveness and the startle response. These are just a few. I'm sure there are a lot more. So do I have my license? Yes, I still have my license. But what I'm finding more recently is I'm driving less and less. I only drive during the day. I have to be at the top of my game that day. Otherwise, I have a family member drive me. I don't drive at night any longer. I prefer to have my husband drive me everywhere nowadays. And on days that I do drive, I have specific routes that I usually take. They avoid highways and they avoid major roads. I've just found easier ways with less traffic to get somewhere if absolutely have to go. Do I think this is wise? If I think about it, probably not. I might consider giving up my keys. Yes, in my heart, I know this is the right thing to do. In my head, I don't want to give up that last piece of dignity and freedom, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to give it up yet. I guess it comes with what happens to us. When we are diagnosed, we start to lose a lot of things in our lives, like friends. We lose control of certain things. I guess this is my last ditch at holding on to something. But I'm starting to be aware it's time to give up driving. So in closing, I just want to tell you a bit about a research study that was done in Toronto, and it was a very small study. There was 20 patients with probable Alzheimer's disease of mild severity. They were compared to 20 subjects with mild cognitive impairment and a group of age-matched neurologically normal controls on a driving simulator. While they were in the simulator, they measured the measurements of driving competency included the length of the drive, the number of infractions, omissions of stops at a pedestrian crossing, speed limits violation, the number of stops at traffic lights, the mean time to a collision, and the number of off-road events. Results in the driving competency measurements were correlated with the scores obtained from simple visual reaction times and mini mental status exams. And in conclusion, mild Alzheimer's disease significantly impairs simulated driving fitness, while mild cognitive impairment limitedly affected driving performance. Unsafe driving behavior in Alzheimer's disease patients was not predicted by the MMSC scores that were administered. Even though this was a very small study, I think it's enough proof for me. I just need to get it in my brain and to accept this and hand over my keys.